So let's get started with the readings for week one. So as I said in my introductory video, I'm actually not gonna lecture you, but at the same time, I want these videos to be able to help you reflect on what the course material is like, especially in weeks where I assign a lot of written material. So, for example, for this week, I assigned parts from chapters 1 and 2 of the Parsons textbook. Okay, so chapter 1 starts with a very interesting part that explains basically what politics is. I'm assuming that you've already done the reading before you watch this video. So it says that politics is basically the making of collective decisions, and that since humanity, humans are a social animal, are a social beast, okay? And so whenever we are not just living as an individual on top of a mountain, living in a shack, cutting their own wood, and hunting for food and completely able to escape any sort of human interaction, in any other form of human life, well, there is politics. Because the moment that there's a family, the moment that there's a community of people, politics is always involved, okay? Because of this, politics is inescapable, because whenever there's more than one people, we need to make decisions, and when we are alone, we can just make a decision for ourselves. Whereas if there are two people, you already have to make decisions for two people. One person can decide for both, but that's already a political form. That's a tyranny, okay? Or a monarchy, if you prefer. One can be the king or the queen, or whoever they want to be, okay? In America, there are a lot of people who think that they can escape politics and that politics are completely unnecessary. That's a common mistake, which just comes from the fact that this is basically a nation of immigrants. I mean, there were native people living in this country before, but this is a country made by people that wanted to escape a certain type of political order. And so we think that it was made by people who wanted to escape politics, but it wasn't made by people who wanted to escape politics. It was made by people who wanted to escape the tyranny of the English kings, okay? So, as we said, once we live in a community, we're exposed necessarily to different points of view. Okay, there's going to be disagreements. You all grew up in a family, or in any case in a community of people, and there were decisions to be made. And even, for small things like what to buy for breakfast, there's always disagreement. So we can say that there's a politics of breakfast, just like there's a politics of immigration, a politics of economic policy. There's a politics of language, and so on and so forth, okay? This is what makes political science interesting. It's the fact that politics is everywhere, and political scientists can talk about pretty much anything in its political aspects, okay? Politics of science, for example. Who is paying scientists? Private or public institutions? Is science underfunded, for example, okay? It's also very interesting to study political science because you don't have fixed theories in the same way that you would do, for example, for mathematics, because political scientists disagree about stuff because they respond to different ideologies or they see the world in different ways. And so they think that different things are better for us politically, okay? So the book talks about three types of political studies, okay? Political description, just like a description of something. So what are politics like in Papua New Guinea in Oceania? Okay, how is politics like in Eastern Oregon? How is politics like in Eugene? How is politics like in New York? And so on and so forth. And politics can mean many different things, political institutions, but also political ideologies, okay? Political philosophy, on the other side, looks at how should things be. It's where ideology starts. Okay, so you say, a political philosopher is the person that thinks about how politics should look like, okay? Should we have a king or should we have an elected government? Should our elected government be federal? Should it be unitary? And so on and so forth, and the reasons behind it, okay? And then third comes political science, which was also the third to emerge historically, which asks the question why. why are things in a certain way? Why are politics made in a specific way? Let's look at history, let's look at how people were thinking, and so on and so forth. A common problem is that many people, including some of you and definitely me growing up, are only exposed to one type of politics, and they are not really able to compare arguments from different typologies. So maybe everybody's just exposed, many people are just exposed in their family to a conservative argument and they never hear the liberal argument, and vice versa. And very often people just think that people that don't think like them are just biased. Okay, so we'll try to fix that as much as we can. A few words about how Parsons' book treats explanation. Okay, so basically Parsons' book says that there are three types of explanation. One type is a rational material type, which basically says that people just act based on how much money they have or on the geographic surroundings that are around them, so that, for example, people in the countryside or commuters are against gas prices going up because they take the car every day, okay? Or rich people are anti-tax because they don't want people to put hands in their pockets. Or, for example, Saudi Arabia is a powerful country in the Middle East because it's got oil, okay? Very simple. Institutional kind of explanations are more interesting and even more proper to political science. They are linked to institutions, such as, for example, I don't know, international organizations or governments. Like, for example, an institutional explanation is Western Europe hasn't gone to war. France and Germany have had wars throughout the centuries, and then they fought against each other in World War II until the French surrendered. And then after that, they haven't gotten to war against each other. Why is that? Well, because they created the European community afterwards. Okay, so that's an institutional explanation of why France and Germany haven't gone to war against each other since then. Or another one, as an Italian myself, I often wonder and say, why is it that Americans are so obsessed with guns, pro-guns, anti-guns, and so on? Well, an easy answer to this question, an institutional answer is, well, in the Constitution, there is an article, very important article, the Second Amendment, that gives people the right to bear guns. And so people fight because there is an institutional arrangement regulating guns. Okay. Or another question that we can ask that has an institutional answer is, why can a president win the election without winning the majority of the votes? And the answer is because America is a federal state. And so there are some states where votes count more than the others because they are smaller, but at the same time, they need to be represented at the federal level. Okay. Last, we have ideational or cultural explanations. Okay, so the first was about material causes, the second was about institution, and the third one is about culture and ideas. Okay, very simply, an example about pro-life and pro-choice positions about abortions. We all know that evangelical people who belong to the evangelical religion tend to be generally pro-life. And why is that? Because their religion, their ideology says that that's the way to go. Okay? Or someone like Bernie Sanders, who is a self-proclaimed socialist, is in favor of like socialized medicine, of Obamacare, and measures maybe even more drastic than Obamacare. And an easy answer that talks to his culture, to his ideology, is Bernie Sanders thinks so because he's a socialist. Okay?